All right, all right, all right. It is the end of week 4 after spring break, which, by the way, I realized I had the discussion date wrong for week 4. That's what happens before spring break. Anyway, I fixed it. But, remember, what is attendance? Attendance is really just checking in to see how the class is going and to give you some of my updates as I move through the course and do the content as well. But one thing I want to talk about today is this. We're on week 5. This is a 9-week class. So we're going to be past the halfway point, and I said before break, right, that the last date to drop was upon us. It's actually here now. So I hope you see this in time, or I hope you saw that other post in time. Because at this point, I would say definitely, if you're not caught up, yeah, that might be an option for you. Because this class requires definitely a certain amount of time and effort. And if your life doesn't allow that, then, consider your options. And I think what I'll end up doing is actually sending this sending this video to an email to everyone so that everybody understands the end. So that's the end, right? 5 May 18, which is a Thursday, right? So if we look at this, so let's just go into whatever calendar you want. Like I actually like kind of using the calendar on here because there's no due dates, right? It's hard to see any of that relevant information, which is again why I like due dates in a way so you can see. But hey, so this, and here's the key, right? At 1 p.m. Okay. No exceptions. Because here's the thing, you've been given a lot of leeway regarding how you can organize your time. So at this point, we have to have a hard deadline. Okay. So I just want you to know what that is. I want you to know that, right? Every week, and I've been saying this, you really should be doing 2 weeks, which means as we move into week 5, you should be all the way through 10. Now, if you want some good news, I'll tell you this. Week 10, actually, there's only one item, but it's an important one, which is float. So, keep that in mind. And you're going to end up, oh, my nose is itching. You're going to end up having to create a small website for 2 assignments. And the final one, I added a few things into it as well. So, FYI, check that content out. The thing I want to, in addition to that, talk about today is the idea of media queries, because as you move, some of you have already moved, which is awesome because it gave me a chance to realize that I needed to catch up. And one of the things that Todd does differently than I think a lot of people in the industry now, and when he recorded these videos, it was probably perfectly fine, but now media queries are typically always just included with your regular CSS files. Now, you can totally do it. I'm not going to mark off the way he shows to do it. And I think there's definitely some benefit in organizing these things. And if you're not to media queries yet, you're like, what are you talking about? Right? So it's the idea that we can query the media, right? Find out based on the type of media, we indicate the type of media, some flexibility in what gets displayed, the size of that display. And really, this leads into responsive design because we want our websites to respond to whatever device in a way that gives the user a good experience. And media queries has been a way we do it, which, by the way, there are actually newer ways to do this as well that are even, I think, simpler. Grid is a way, and like Todd covers Flexbox as a way to be flexible in the way that we have our page laid out, and just understanding the different ways we can place content on the page with this wonderful Flexbox. What's happened over time is Flexbox and Grid have become equally important, and not that you want to learn one over the other. You kind of want to learn the best of both worlds. But let me come back to this media query idea. The one thing I'm going to post in this discussion is actually this link right here, which is to the beginner's guide to media queries on MDN. And I know he talks a lot about MDN, and I'm telling you, it is both intimidating and awesome, right? But it's really, and this is the key, right? Add the code at the bottom of your CSS to where what Todd's doing, and again, I'm not going to mark off, but I just want you to know kind of more modern practices. What you would just have one CS, or you could have multiple CSS files. That's not a problem. But you would typically just include them in your regular CSS, because what you will see him do is in the link reference in the HTML, he'll specify the media, and then it points to a different uh, CSS file, which to me is just more to organize. So I'm like, okay, when a site gets a certain size, you definitely want to have it broken into logical units. I see the benefit there. But typically these days, this is the way that you can see it being done, right? And understanding, and probably part of the reason he didn't was that because you have to understand the cascade idea, that where you place your media queries is important in your CSS file because it's read from top to bottom. Okay, so I'm going to, again, provide this link in the discussion for this week as well. Okay, so I think this is a lot of what I wanted to say today, right? I've talked about the calendar, that the May 18th, right? The semester ends on the 19th. May 18th at 1 o'clock, last time to submit work. I definitely do not recommend waiting until that point. There's no exceptions because I have to submit grades, and then folks that are waiting, I got to grade your work, which, by the way, if you don't know this, you can. And I believe I've said it, but I will say it again, is what I do when you submit work is I actually have it on my local system. And so what I do is a git pull. So what that does is first I do a clone of your repo, okay? And then I do a git pull whenever you submit work, and then I run it on my local system so I can see, I can look at the code in VS Code, which I absolutely love doing. It's just, I like VS Code. I know Todd in his videos, and he talked about, he uses WebStorm, but in his course, he actually recommends VS Code because at this point, it's just so widely used. So that's the way I do it, is I actually go and bring it into my system and look at it there. And when I was researching this idea of media queries and kind of the best practice and where it's at, I use ChatGPT. Because the thing we have is this new resource to answer some of our questions that we might have, and there's free accounts for ChatGPT. So, consider going on there as well. Again, not to write code for you, but to help you close some of the gaps that you might have when you're trying to understand, right? Well, not just in this course, but in general, the more you learn to leverage, like, when search, you won't remember, but when search engines first came out, everybody was like, how do I use this thing, right? And what we found is that over time, people just naturally, the statistics showed this out, became better searchers. I believe the same is going to be true with ChatGPT. The difference is the quality of the information should, over time, get higher, to where instead of having to go through 10 different references, I mean, really, how many do that, right? But instead of doing that, you should get an answer that you can validate that answer, right? And as they start adding sources where that information comes from, I think that will also be extremely helpful. Anyway, my 2 cents for the day. Have a great week. Remember, my office hours are listed in some simple syllabus, right? But it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 1 to 1:50. Thursday, I'm a little earlier, noon to 12:50. And then Friday, which is today, which is generally when I do this kind of content, is virtual. So I'm at home. And remember, you can either come on campus, not required, or you can come into Zoom, because I have both available during Monday through Thursday office hours, but on Friday, it's Zoom only. All right, have a great week. What could be in your reply is like, anything that I've talked about, any comment that you have, any question about any of the content you're struggling with, or about this due date, or about this last due date of the semester. All right, have a great week. Talk to you later.